Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packers the Podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and after, good God, the whooping that was last Sunday against the Chargers, the Green Bay Packers head back home to Lambeau Field to take on the Panthers before a bye week and then a date with the 49ers. Now, a few weeks ago when I did a little schedule predictions, this was one of the games I circled of us potentially losing because, of course, you have the god Christian McCaffrey. We don't have to worry about Cam Newton, but this game should be a great game and hopefully a game where the Packers can show off their stuff, because if last week was any indication on how the rest of the season's going, that's a big oof. So, with us today, we have Carolina Panthers fan Chad to walk us through this Week 10 matchup. Chad, thank you so much for coming on, bud. Appreciate it.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I feel like right now, the Panthers are like living like through the old-timey Packers with Aaron Rodgers, because like Aaron Rodgers has carried our team for years. And right now, Christian McCaffrey is literally just like, hey, I'm going to bring you to the promised land on my little legs, and we are just going to go full throttle. Good God, man. Do you have like any idea how ridiculous it is to have a running back of your caliber right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. Like, we've had good running backs in the past. You know, we've had DeAngelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, and then even going back before that, we've had really great running backs. But, I mean, C-Mac or CMC, he's just on another level. He's ridiculous. I mean, like you said, he's basically just carrying the team on his back.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me is, like, the stats he already has nearly 900 yards. He has a combined 13 touchdowns already, 3 through the air and 10 on the ground. And I feel like every single time I see Panthers highlights every single week, it's like, oh, there's another 80-yard touchdown. There's another 50-yard touchdown. And it's just so incredible to just watch him play. And so, like, when you drafted him a few years back, you know, obviously spending a high draft pick on him, did you have a sense of like, oh, like this is the kind of guy that we're drafting? Did you ever think that it was going to become, like, he was going to be this damn good?
No, I mean, I don't think anybody predicted he would be this good. I mean, if you go back to that, you know, during the draft when all the experts and analysts were talking about it, you know, they all said we should have drafted Dalvin Cook, or at least Dalvin Cook should have went ahead of him. Nobody thought anybody should have picked their running back that high at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't have any clue that he was going to be this good. I didn't even generally like the pick at the moment because I thought we had more pressing needs. But, I mean, boy, I'm sure glad we picked him now. The dude is an absolute monster. He's definitely one of the top running backs in the league, if not the top running back in the league. And he can just do everything. Like, he's basically our entire offense. So.
Yeah, and like I said, like, listen, we're used to that, just not with running backs. We're just used to that with our quarterback, of literally just being our offense, and that's it. It's just him back there. And, you know, considering how your season started, right, you go 0-2, Cam Newton gets hurt. Like, heading into week 3, like, there has to be, like, oh, this is not going well. Like, this is a problem. And, you know, for you guys to go, like, on that win streak that you did, getting broken by the Niners, but then you bounced back last week, kind of, like, what is your, like, emotions been throughout this season, even though we're only in week 10? Yeah, I feel like you must have gone from, okay, we're in big trouble, to, oh, we're doing really, really good. Okay, now we're back down to earth a little bit. Like, where are you, like, in that entire process of trying to evaluate the Panthers this season?
Yeah, it's super tough. And I mean, if there's one thing about being a Panthers fan, it's like you're always in for an emotional roller coaster no matter what. Like, they call us the cardiac cat. So you never know. You think you're going to win, you're going to lose. You think you're going to lose, you're going to win. So, I mean, like you said, heading into week 3, I mean, we didn't know what to think. It was obvious Cam was hurt. Nobody was saying anything. Cam wasn't saying anything. The coaching staff wasn't saying anything. Even midweek, before week 3, they still weren't sure if he was going to play or not. Then it comes out that, oh, Cam re-aggravated his injury, so we're going to go with Kyle Allen. And, I mean, half of us were like, oh, we might have a chance to win because we saw Kyle Allen play last year, and he did pretty well, and it's versus the Cardinals. So we have a decent shot. Their defense isn't really good, and, you know, with Christian McCaffrey, there's always opportunity to win. But even before that game, our defense was playing not so well either. So it was just a big question mark at that point. And I'd say now it's still a roller coaster because, like you said, we were winning. We were doing really good. Then we got absolutely dumpstered by the 49ers, which, I mean, I think a lot of our fans, we were pretty optimistic about that game, that we could keep it close. If our defense played well, we could maybe squeak out a win. Yeah, none of that happened. So we got beat by them. We came back. We played well against Tennessee. But, like, this entire time we're still thinking, oh, Cam's going to come back. You know, when he gets back, we have a good chance at a run at the playoffs if we continue to play well. Now he's not coming back. So, you know, some of us are like, this season is doomed. Some of us is like, we still have a chance to make it to the playoffs. And then there's some of us that are like, even if we make it to the playoffs, we can't win with Kyle Allen. So it's just a roller coaster that never ends, basically.
It's just like you're just going loop after loop after loop, and you're like, oh, we're super high, and now we're coming crashing down again. Yeah, I feel like
exactly.
Like with Kyle Allen, it was one of those things that, like, he was playing damn well, especially over that 4-game stretch, right? And even, like, you know, looking at his stats, like, they're not, like, ridiculously overly impressive, but he's thrown for over 1,200 yards. He's completing a bunch of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, which I'm not mistaken, 3 of them came after, I think it was 3 out of that 49ers game. So, you know, you look at that, and you're like, okay, Cam goes down, obviously problematic, and then you have Kyle Allen, who's playing well enough not to cost us the game. We'll not talk about the 49ers game because I also picked you guys to win that game, and we're just going to pretend that never happened. So so with Kyle Allen, like, what you have now, right? Like, he's the guy who is, like, not going to turn the ball over a whole lot. You know, he'll get you the yards when you have to, but you're going to rely on your strengths, right? You're going to rely on Christian McCaffrey, you know, DJ Moore when you can, and then that defense hopefully showing up whenever they decide to show up. And so, kind of like looking at this season as a whole, like, where are you? You're talking about, like, fans talking, like, all over the place. Where are you right now? Because in a super competitive NFC conference, do you think the Panthers can squeak out a wild card? Because obviously you guys are, like, behind the Saints, who are just monsters right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely still optimistic about our chances. I think I said after I found out Cam was placed on IR, I was like, optimistically, probably 11-5. Realistically, most likely 10-6. I think that's definitely doable still. There's going to be a couple of tough games we're going to have to win. I mean, we play you guys, we play the Colts, we play the Seahawks, and we play the Saints twice still. So it's going to be a tough run, but, you know, I'm pretty optimistic. Like you said, we have Christian McCaffrey, who's he's going to ball out. We have Kyle Allen, who, I mean, for a backup quarterback, he's played extremely well, and I've been extremely happy with the way he's played. Mm-hmm. As long as he continues to take care of the ball. He had a lot of fumbling issues his first few weeks, you know, so if anytime he got sacked, he pretty much fumbled it. And then in the 49ers game, he made a few careless throws. He'll swing it out there if he has to. So if he's a little bit more careful and he's a little bit better of that continues to be a good game manager, I feel like we can win a few of those close games. And if our defense plays well, then, yeah, we got a good shot to make at least the wild card.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough because, like, I feel like you may have 10-6 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs in the NFC because you're having nearly 2 teams from every single division that are usually doing well, right? You have, like, the Packers and Vikings, you have the Saints and you guys, you have in the NFC West, you have the Seahawks, you have the 49ers, and then who the hell knows what's going on with, like, the Rams, and then, you know, the NFC East is... a dumpster fire, but like, a Cowboys or the Eagles or something will come out of whatever garbage pile is. But like there may be a team that's like sitting on the outskirts with a pretty damn good record, which, any other year would get the job done and get them into the dance. But, I'm looking at this even from a Packers perspective. I'm like, we need to stay ahead of the Vikings because I don't want to risk, potentially getting a wild card, which this Sunday, it could be a really important game when it comes to playoff positioning, for both of our teams, especially if we're fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This is like you said, it's one of those weird years where the NFC is so stacked that our chances are pretty low. Any team's chances, if you don't win the division, I mean, it's going to be tough. If we can squeak out the 11-5, that, like I said, that I was optimistic about, I have a really good feeling about it because I don't feel like, either the Seahawks, Rams, or the Vikings, if they don't win the division, I don't feel like one of those three teams will have that good of a record. Mm-hmm. And if they do, the only team we won't have a good tiebreaker against would be the Rams because we lost to them. Mm-hmm. But assuming we beat the Seahawks and have a better record than them, like that's the way we have to squeak in. So yeah, it's going to be a tough second half of the season. Yeah. And I'm definitely nervous, but I'm optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic, we would say.
Exactly.
So, in that 4-game stretch, where I'm sure the Carolina faithful have talked about this nonstop, that 4-game stretch where Kyle Allen was playing good football, you guys were winning games. There started, and this was before obviously we knew that Cam Newton was going on IR, there started to be some articles posted about like, oh, is Cam going to get traded? There was a big rumor that he was going to get traded to the Broncos and that the Broncos were like aggressively trying to trade for him. And, Cam Newton over the years in Carolina, like he has his ebbs and flows, right? There's years where it's like, yes, you were amazing. Like, you could do things that other players in the NFL or other QBs can't do. And it's incredible. Then there's like the poor decision making, but do you count strap Cam with that, or the fact that he barely had anyone to throw the ball to? Like there's been some, like I said, ebbs and flows on the offense. And so where's kind of your stance? Obviously Newton's out for the year. Where's your stance on him remaining as your franchise quarterback? Like, is that one of the things that are like, yes, like we're going to keep on rolling with Cam. He's our best chance to win. Or like, are you like, hey, if we could potentially trade him, obviously not right now because the deadline's passed, but kind of what are your thoughts on Cam?
Yeah, I mean, it's super tough because there's a lot of nuances to the situation. And, I mean, if you look at Cam, in essence, he's been a very polarizing character since he's come into the league, especially among our own fans. Coming into the league, we thought we were going to draft Andrew Luck that year. Andrew Luck decided to stay in college, so we decided to go with Cam Newton. Already half the fan base didn't want Cam Newton. Mm-hmm. I've been a big fan of Cam ever since he's been in the league. He's taken us to the playoffs, I think, 4 times. He's taken us to a Super Bowl. We obviously didn't win, but, I mean, that's a lot more success than we've had in a really long time. I think the situation as far as us keeping him, if he's 100% healthy, I mean, there's no chance. I mean, there's no question that you don't keep this guy. I mean, he's an amazing talent. There's no other quarterback like him. I mean, I guess you could say Lamar Jackson's probably the closest, except Lamar Jackson's like way faster, but Cam's way bigger. He's like a linebacker out there. If he's 100% healthy coming out of the offseason, I mean, there's no question we keep him. The real issue I have that with the people that want to get rid of him after this season is we don't really have another option besides him. I mean, we have Kyle Allen, like we've been talking about, who's been playing well, but he's not, at this moment, he is not a franchise quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback. He's amazing for a backup. We've been winning games with him, but it's not because of him. Yeah. It's because of our defense and Christian McCaffrey. So what I think personally, and what I think is the smartest move, is we keep him. We owe him less than $20 million if we keep him his last year. We see what he's got left. If he doesn't have anything left, then then we figure out a way to move on. But I feel like it's a little short-sighted to think about getting rid of him now. We won't have a high draft pick. I mean, like we just talked about, we're on the verge of possibly making the playoffs. So with a mid-round draft pick, there's no way we're getting a quarterback in the draft. Kyle Allen, I don't think, is the answer for now. He might be in the future. And Will Greer definitely isn't the answer. So I personally think we roll with him and just see what we have, you know?
Yeah, and I think you touched on something of like this, like the short-sightedness, right? Because like NFL fans in particular, and like NFL media is like, what have you done for me lately, right? So like you start 0-2, and Cam's playing hurt, obviously, but you start 0-2, and then here comes his backup who wins 4 straight, and it's kind of just like, oh, Cam Newton's already old news. Yeah, let's trade him to the Broncos. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, again, like you said, like he has accolades, he has accomplishments for your team. And, you know, if you're looking at it and you put it perfectly, like you're winning games, but it's not because of Kyle Allen. You're winning it because you have an amazing running back there, and when your defense plays well, they're playing really, really well. And, you know, it's just a matter of, okay, you're trying to assemble the best team possible, but yeah, I mean, I don't think Cam Newton is going to, you know, sit. You said next year's his contract year, right?
Exactly.
So, like, I doubt he's going to sit for the year, you know, and hold out, so you play him, you see what he got, and, you know, it might be a Joe Flacco situation, not comparing their ability, don't worry, but this idea of, you're like, hey, it's like a prove-it year. You know, you obviously have people within the fan base who are obviously against Cam Newton, and you have a backup QB who's coming in and playing well, and especially those voices will get louder if you guys wind up making the playoffs. And it'll be kind of like, all right, well, this is your contract year, go prove them wrong or not, you know, and kind of take a guess on that.
Yeah, I think the big issue, like you said, is it's a what have you done for me lately league. So people are going to be like, hey, we're winning and Kyle Allen's at the helm, so, you know, he must be the reason why we're winning. We can win with Cam Newton, so just leave him out to dry or whatever. The other thing is next year is Cam Newton's last contract year, but we don't have any money for him on the books. So we could let him walk in free agency and not pay $20 million, so we could use that money to sign other people. But my thing is you're going to let a guy walk for nothing, who your franchise quarterback. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And then the people who are like, well, you could trade him during the off season, but I'm like, well, if our own fans don't think he's good enough to play for us, why would anybody give us high draft picks for him? It's like a weird, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So
yeah, it's like
I just say we just pay him the $20 million, let him see, because $20 million is still less than the average starting quarterback salary now, because it's up to like $35 million a year.
Yep.
So it's like, just pay the guy 1 year. If he sucks, you know, get rid of him. And I'm the biggest Cam Newton fan. I'd hate to see him leave, but I mean, if he's never going to be the old Cam Newton, we have to move on. But
sure,
I mean, you don't need to rush to make that decision right now.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, you have that luxury. You have a luxury of like waiting another year. I mean, you know, eventually you'll have to pay Christian McCaffrey like God money and just like drain the banks. But you know what? That's fine. In that case, you know what? It's worth it for that. And
oh, absolutely.
When looking at like your division fascinates me. Like, just, like, when I, like, sit here every single August, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to see, let's see, who's going to win the NFC South this year? And it's a complete and total toss-up. The only team I know is not winning the NFC South in any given year is the Buccaneers. And that's just, that's the only, because as long as they hold on to Jameis Winston, I'm going to be like, okay, another year of mediocrity for you. Good. I'm so sorry, Mike Evans. But, like, then you do like the shuffle, right? In which the Saints, they were bad for a couple of years. Now they've come back with a vengeance. The Falcons, you know, they can make the Super Bowl and now they just suck. And then the Panthers are like always on like the cusp. They're either like that wild card team or they're just missing out. So for someone who is not like super honed into the NFC South, can you do your very best to explain what the hell is going on in that division? Because this year, like, I was like, oh, the Falcons are going to do really well, and they are literal garbage. Like, they are terrible. And you have, obviously, the Saints and you guys, like, playing very, very well. So, yeah, can you just explain your division for me?
I don't think, honestly, anybody can explain our division. It's just, it's a total crapshoot. Like you said, during the off season, you never know what's going to happen. I actually don't think until a few years ago, no team in the NFC South had won the division 2 years in a row until we did it. And I think we won it 1 year, like, convincingly, and the other year we won it, like, 7-9-1 or something like that. That might have been the season. But, yeah, it's just, you just never know. Like you said, unless except for the Bucks, they're going to be perennially bad. The Falcons is mystery because you would think they would be good. They have a defensive-minded coach, and their defense is garbage.
Yeah.
And then the Saints is always a question mark because when you have Drew Brees, it's like, man, you would think you would win every season, but it just depends on what they put around him. But he always has the ability to carry the team on his back. And then us, I mean, depends on how aggressive we want to be on play calling, and it depends on who we have calling plays. So we could be good or we could just be mediocre.
Yeah. And speaking of, and you even see it with, like, Teddy Bridgewater. Like, Drew Brees goes down and you're like, oh, here comes trouble. Oh, no, okay, he's going to win all the games that he starts. Okay, never mind. Like, they were gone for, like, 2 years, and they're like, you just wait, because it's going to suck when we come back.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we thought that with Drew Brees going down, that was our one chance we had to win the division. We were like, oh, if we just win out the next 4 games, which we did, and the Saints lose a few games, because you would think they would lose a few games without Drew Brees. No, they won every game too. So it's like, we just can't really catch a break. That's the NFC South for you.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's so difficult. And again, like, you look at a team like the Falcons, who has, like, all the offensive, like, firepower you could possibly want, and just no, just flat out no.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because Matt Ryan, he's been, like, historically he's been good.
Yeah.
If he has the same offensive coordinator in multiple years. So he got a first-time coordinator last year. And then what do? Instead of keeping him along to see if Matt Ryan can get better, they just fire him and bring in a new guy. So it's just like, well, like, for whatever reason, it takes Matt Ryan a while to get used to a new offense. Yeah. And then you just get rid of that guy and they suck. And then, like I said, you have a defensive-minded coach who should at least keep your defense in top shape.
Yeah.
No, their defense is probably one of the worst defenses in the entire league. So
100%.
I have no idea what's going on with them.
Yeah, and they were trying to trade, like, Beasley too, and they couldn't even get, like, any takers on that. Like, it just, yeah, things in Atlanta aren't going well. You mentioned play calling before, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on Riverboat Ron. I'm curious because, like, he has been highlighted by the media of sometimes making those, like, really gutsy, aggressive play calls, and sometimes they work to his advantage and sometimes to his detriment. And I'm curious, while you guys are going through, like, these highs and lows, he's been there for a bit now. Kind of what's your take on your head coach? Are you still, like, aboard the riverboat, or, is that ship set sail? Wow, I used so many puns in there. That's...
Yeah, I've been the biggest Ron apologist for probably since the entire time he's been here. Last season, a lot of people were calling for his head, and I was like, look, Cam's been injured. It's not his fault. Let's give him another year. And, the fact of the matter is he's been pretty mediocre for most of his time here. We've made the playoffs. We've been to the Super Bowl, but we've also had a losing record for half the time he's been here. So I can see why a lot of people want to get rid of him. But realistically, if we get rid of him, there's not a lot of better options out there. So it's like, who do you hire instead of him? You get rid of him and you run the risk of being a losing NFL team,
yep.
Or you can keep him and run the risk of being mediocre to possibly, making a deep run in the playoffs. So I just don't know who we would replace him with. I have dreams sometimes of us hiring, like, a offensive genius like Shanahan or McVay and seeing what they could do with Cam, but realistically, it's so hard to hit on a good NFL coach that I just don't know if you do get rid of him, who do you hire instead? Now, I would like us to see us make another change at offensive coordinator. I like Norv. I think he's good sometimes. I think he's a little bit outdated. I think that a lot of the really good teams are being a lot more creative offensively. I think when you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you can scheme up better ways to get him open in the passing game or scheme up ways to make our run game even better than it already is. You have DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, who are really fast, and we could scheme up better ways to get them open. But, it just seems like we're a little too conservative sometimes, and I wish that we would just just go for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes total sense. Hey, listen, if you want a guy who's going to call 2 runs and then a pass every single down, Mike McCarthy, I don't think is doing anything right now. I'm sure you could reach out to him, and just be like, hey, bud, he'll have a lot of fun with Christian McCaffrey, but, he won't utilize him, like we're now utilizing Aaron Jones. But I mean, hey, listen, if you need a body there, he's a good guy, so you might want to take a look potentially there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Some Panther fans, they only know names, so it's they hear a famous coach's name and they're like, yeah, let's get him, let's go with it.
Yep.
No, did you see what he did with one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game? No, they should be perennial Super Bowl contenders, and they were terrible his last season there. So it's just
Yep. Every day, every time I try to escape it, even talking to Panthers fans, they're just like, why doesn't Aaron Rodgers have more Super Bowls? I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
So taking a little bit more of a macro look at the rest of the season, you were saying that you have some tough games coming up, right? You have the Packers, you have the Seahawks, you have guys like the Colts. So you said realistically, 10-6, optimistically looking at 11-5. And then, so looking more concisely to this Sunday, in which I think it's going to be a great game between the Packers and the Panthers. How do you see this Sunday shaking out, and kind of what's your key? Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to need to get going, and running backs have been doing that lately. Like Melvin Gordon did that to us last week. So for you, how do you see this game shaking out?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really tough one for us. Is it still supposed to snow up there?
I mean, it has been snowing. It snowed, I think, yesterday over in Wisconsin. I know. I hope it's over the weekend. I'm totally down for a snow game. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for us to win, I mean, it's going to be on the back of Christian McCaffrey. And then from what I know about the Packers, I know that their run defense isn't the best. So I think we have a good shot there to at least take out some chunks. And if we can use him to, at least somewhat open up the passing game so Kyle Allen can make a couple good, safe midfield throws, I think we can do pretty good. I won't come out and say that we're going to win because, Aaron Rodgers is going to do Aaron Rodgers things. And especially after last week's beating, he's just going to be pissed off, and he's going to be back home, and he's going to want to win. So I'm not going to count him out. But our pass defense is pretty good. Our pass rush is phenomenal. Yeah. So if we can get after him, I have a really good feeling about the game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's probably going to be a lower scoring game. But I don't want to say I do like us to win, but I like us to keep it close and keep it interesting. I will say the only thing is our run defense is also pretty bad. So that's going to be the wild card there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because the number one thing that has me worried is your pass rush. Because considering we got smacked around by the Chargers last week, and it was ugly. The offensive line didn't play well. It looks like we walked into LA without a game plan, and it was like, let's just see what happens. And we didn't establish the run, we didn't establish the pass, we just got smacked around. And Devontae Adams' first game back, he was targeted more than all the other receivers combined. And and we got away from what was producing winning football. So I think that what Packer fans are waiting on the edge of their seat for, because we want to move on from the Chargers game as soon as possible, just like you guys wanted to move away from the 49ers game. It's kind of just like, okay, you know what, now it's time to see, like, is this a pattern in which, like, you know, this is bad, like, this is going to go very poorly, or is that, like, you know, the one-off random games where, you know, you just get blown out? And that might be the 49ers game for you, right? And that, like, you know, okay, obviously that was a bad game. There's no part about, like, burn the tape and never look at it again and continue and seeing what we got. I feel like we're in very similar positions right now, especially, you know, getting close to, you know, we're definitely past midway, but getting, you know, close to definitely start to get the playoff races going. I think this is going to be a super duper close game because both teams have a ton to lose, especially if they lose this week.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that what good teams do, and I think the Packers are obviously a really good team, is when they get blown out like that, they come back and they show why they're a good team, and they come back and just, like, absolutely dominate the game. So that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid what's going to happen is we get off to a slow start, and then you guys score a couple touchdowns on us, and then it's just like we can't even come back because we're terrible at playing from behind too. So it's like if the game gets out of our hands, then I have a bad feeling about us being able to win the game. And then, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, he's just going to do Aaron Rodgers things. Like, I have faith in our pass rush, but our pass rush tries to get to Aaron Rodgers, he's just going to run around and do what he does and get the ball out, and it's going to be, like, super frustrated. So
that's the hope, but because I didn't see a lot of that last week, and I was waiting for Aaron Rodgers to do Aaron Rodgers things. It just never happened. But that's definitely not. You can't put that all on him because he
needs to grow the mustache back out. That's the problem.
Thank you. Right? He shaved it, and look what happens. Coincidence? I think not. Absolutely not. Yeah, no. That's what happens when you mess with it. Where we win when you have the mustache, and you don't. And look what happens. Look what you did. Like, look what you did.
Thank you. And I actually think he looks better with the mustache. I have a quick question for you, because I don't have an opportunity to talk to a lot of Packers fans. What has been your whole take on the whole Aaron Rodgers likes to call his own plays, he doesn't like to listen to the coaches, blah, 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 like that whole controversy? Because it's so weird that Aaron Rodgers, he's always been like, you know, like they treat him like I don't want to, you know, use Tom Brady as an example, but like as like a well-respected quarterback, you know, that they don't get a lot of hate or anything like that. And it seems like the media just like all of a sudden turn on him after McCarthy, and they're like, he's hard to work with and he calls his own plays and things like that. And like, what do you think about that, and what's your take on, like, how do you like LaFleur so far, and how do you like the offense and things like that?
Yeah, so like when because like that was, oh my God, this offseason was so bad. Like, it was so bad. Like, that article, so obviously McCarthy gets ushered out, and, you know, that whole article that comes out, you know, detailing, you know, how Rodgers would basically just, like, ignore McCarthy, and, you know, he would be kind of like a complete douche to the players, and you got guys like Greg Jennings and Jermichael Finley ripping into Rodgers, and then you have other guys coming to defend him. And then the problem is that you hired Matt LaFleur, who is a young coach. They're like right around the same age. They're not that far apart. It's his first time as a head coach, and all the media is talking about is how Aaron Rodgers is going to eat this kid alive. And it's funny because as the time is because like you hear that over and over and over again, even as a Packers fan, like you could dismiss it a whole bunch of times, but like there's that lingering doubt of like, oh crap, I really hope he's not like that, because then we got like a big problem. But I mean, I gotta be completely honest, I have loved what LaFleur has brought to the team. I think he's brought an energy, a youthful energy, and a different energy that hasn't been in Green Bay for a while. And like just the way that they're in the locker room, and like their body language and what have you. And obviously, like he's had his errors and like with poor play calling or like terrible challenges or what have you. And he even admitted in this last game, like he got away from his plan, like his game plan, way too early, and then he got a little bit frazzled. And from looking at it, obviously it helps that we had a defense. I don't know where they've gone, but we've had a defense for at least like a good portion of the season. And I think ultimately I was looking at this of like this year could go really, really poorly. Like we won't make the playoffs poorly. Like we have a losing record poorly because, you have a brand new head coach, you have a new offensive coordinator, you still have young receivers and you see issues like that popping up from game to game. Sometimes it goes really, really well and sometimes they're like very apparent, like in the Chargers game. But I think overall, I'm super happy with what he's done because the play calling as a whole, has just been better. Like the fact that they're utilizing Aaron Jones when Devontae Adams was out and Jamal Williams as receiving threats and this guy who could be a Swiss Army knife, was incredible. And it's been incredible. And I think it's just a matter of, they're still gelling. They're still trying to work together. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out for us this year, I think like a second year with some more experience, LaFleur is going to be rocking this team for a while because for him to find this much early success, especially over all the other first year head coaches, I could not have asked for more. And it's 7-2 after, 9 weeks in the books. I think any team in the NFL would take that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was actually, like you say, you were worried about the season. I was super down on the Packers at the beginning of the season because I felt like the Vikings were going to be better this year than they were last year, and I thought the Bears were still going to be good, but apparently Trubisky has completely lost any ability to throw the football, so that's not happening. But yeah, I mean, it's super cool to see him having this much success so early. It's very like McVay-esque. So it's exciting, and it's always good. I think it's good for the league when Rodgers is out there balling out. So it's fun to watch.
And that's the thing too. Like it looks like they're having fun, which you haven't for 2 seasons. You haven't seen that. And you even go back to the 2016 season, the run the table season, where you're talking about Christian McCaffrey winning games. That was Aaron Rodgers for 6 games straight. He's just I'm going to go out and win us the game. We don't have a defense. We barely have an offense. I'm going to just go and bring us to the playoffs. We're going to go undefeated from this stretch from the Eagles all the way to the Lions. And while that was amazing to watch, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is a season to remember. We got blown out by the Falcons in the NFC Championship game, and it highlighted the point that hey, there needs to be a team built around him, and finally that's starting to happen. I wish it happened a little bit earlier in his career, but it's good to see that the whole audible thing. I think LaFleur is hey, I have one of the best quarterbacks under center right now. I'm going to let him do what he has to do, but I'm also going to give him a bunch of a completely new playbook. And there'll be growing pains with that, but overall, I think it's been a successful partnership thus far.
Yeah, it's a super weird criticism because when you have an elite quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, you expect him to be able to go to the line, look at the defense, and audible out of a play if he feels like a better play is the option. So, if Tom Brady does that or if Russell Wilson does that, they're oh, they're geniuses. But it's all of a sudden because they're, the coach got fired, that, oh, this is a bad thing, and you want your quarterback to listen to every single thing that you say, and it's just that makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and Ryan Grant said it the best, and he goes, listen, you have a quarterback that's literally doing everything all the time. Because under McCarthy, he had all the freedom in the world. He literally was the reason we won games. That was it for years. And you have a QB doing that and having, I would say, 90% of the control of what's going to be called, because he can audible out or what have you. And then you bring in a new coach who it's hey, I'm not going to give you that much freedom. Sure, I think the media just kind of blew it out of proportion completely. And Rodgers and LaFleur have both come out and saying they would read this stuff and they would just burst out laughing. And I'm good, because it shows again, especially in the off season. Listen, I get it. We're just hey, there's no football. It's dark and barren outside. We need to come up with some kind of content. I get it, but yeah, that just, it spun out of control way, way, way too quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but Chad, I want to thank you so much for coming on, bud. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I do wish your Panthers a very, very good amount of luck this year. Just not on Sunday, or if we wind up meeting in the playoffs. But anytime you play an NFC North team, You go, bud. You go.
Hey, man, thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on, and good luck to you guys, too, except on this Sunday.
Makes sense. And this Sunday should be a heck of a game. I know I'm looking forward to it, so grab your popcorn and jammies, because it's about to be showtime. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. You could always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy. All social media you see down below. Check out Packcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course the YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.